What is going on, freelancers? This is Chino and welcome to yet another Anthem video. Today's video we discuss Anthem's loot system and in particular how to get your hands on the best Masterwork and Legendary pieces of gear in the fastest way possible. There's been quite a large amount of talk surrounding the loot system for Anthem's endgame, and rightfully so. It doesn't take you a really extended period of time to get up to that level 30 mark and start pushing for endgame gear. Firstly, in the very beginning, there was only a number of Masterwork pieces out there, and it was rather limited, to be honest with you, and then it seemed to be rewarded in the strangest of circumstances. And while things are actively being patched and changed as time moves on, there was also a debacle in the past where the same Masterwork pieces were dropping over and over, followed by most recent talk of Legendary gear being completely identical to its Masterwork counterpart. When the first group of players reached level 30, the immediate drive obviously was to push content into the Grandmaster difficulties. Once you reach level 30, of course, these Grandmaster difficulties open up to you, and there are a few other things that open up as well. We get 2 new strongholds at the end of the main campaign, being one of the biggest ones. So obviously the response to all of this is to attempt to accomplish these new strongholds that have opened up with these new difficulties that have opened up, and we have Masterwork and Legendary gear being the clear objective. And this is where things started to go wrong, because despite all of the information given to us from developers themselves, of which emerged graphics such as the one you see in front of you, players, including myself, started to realize that being on the hardest difficulty setting doesn't necessarily equate to better loot, a better chance at loot, or more loot per minute. And unfortunately the same can be said about the new strongholds as well. After countless efforts putting in extra hours for our strongholds, our missions, contracts, free roam events, word started to spread that there are much easier methods of obtaining not only Masterwork but also Legendary gear. In fact, many players who jumped on some of these methods really early were able to obtain a full set of Masterwork and Legendary gear and be pretty much endgame ready for any extra content to come out in a single day's grind. In today's video, we're going to be discussing all of these methods and also discuss whether these methods are current and working, patched or going to be patched, and if all goes to plan by the end of this video, you should all be extremely well informed on all of these methods and the best way to obtain the best loot in the game, and then you're able to make an educated decision on which direction you would like to funnel all of your efforts, and hopefully with this knowledge it will also prevent you from wasting valuable time and effort. So before I get into the actual methods themselves, I want to talk about luck. Now, luck is one of those things that is very vague in terms of information around the community and the information that's coming from developers. And look, the way I see it is luck can be viewed much like Magic Find in Diablo. It does work effectively, and there's a noticeable increase in high gear rarity drops. Like most things in Anthem, there's no precise given calculation, and since we don't have character statistical sheets, then we can only really speculate our assumptions on how much our chances are actually changing. But know that many people have reported a substantial change in their loot drops, including myself when equipping luck-based gear. Now, if you actually look at the gear piece itself, when you have a luck stat put on there, this is what it actually looks like. From my research, it seems that these random rolls can go as high as 39% extra luck. Although I'm yet to pick one of these 39% up myself, I have gotten as high as 37%. And when asked directly on Twitter about the functionality of luck, Ben Irving himself actually confirms, albeit in a very basic manner, by saying it's a chance to drop higher rarities. So if higher rarities is what you're looking for, regardless of the content, I'd always recommend having some luck equipped. I've been running between 150 and 200% when I'm on full farm mode, and I'm always noticing a substantial boost in my drops. Legendary contracts are a great way to unlock guaranteed Masterwork gear. The best way to tell if your contract is legendary is to see that the contract icon is actually purple. In the endgame, you will unlock 3 of these each day, so it's a good idea to do all 3 of these every day that you log in. They give you a Masterwork piece at the end of that contract, and you can get multiple like you're seeing on the screen in front of you. Reports are also saying that these will always be component drops, and I can confirm that I have unlocked multiple component drops at the end of each of these legendary contracts. The other great thing about performing legendary contracts is that they're a great way to farm your loyalty, and it's a common misconception out there that you need loyalty level 3 in order to unlock legendary contracts. However, I have been doing legendary contracts in order to produce extra loyalty to get towards level 3, so it must be something else that unlocks it. Now there's a fair bit of confusion around the difficulty settings and the best way to get your hands on Masterwork gear, if Masterwork gear is available at the easiest difficulty settings, if you're going to get your hands on the better versions of Masterwork gear on the easier difficulty settings, and all of those sorts of things. I can, in the very beginning, confirm that if you do play on easy difficulty at level 30, you still have a chance of getting yourself Masterwork gear. In fact, if you're just talking about getting the most drops in a short period of time, just in terms of how many Masterworks you're actually picking up, then easy difficulty strongholds is a very good way to go about getting those gears. But the thing about it is that despite all the information that's out there, just because you're picking up more Masterwork gear per minute doesn't necessarily mean that you're picking up the better Masterwork gear. And as a matter of fact, when you're looting Masterwork gear from an easier difficulty setting like easy, you're only looting from a very small Masterwork loot table. So you're going to be pretty much picking up the same thing over and over, and to get your hands on or to get access to the better Masterwork gear, you really need to start working on doing content in the harder difficulty settings from Grandmaster 1 onwards. After completing multiple strongholds on easy difficulty setting, I averaged 1 to 2 Masterwork pieces per run, and this is all coming from the chest and sometimes dropping from the end boss as well, but it seems that they're all coming from the same loot grab or loot table, and they all seem to be weapons. Now this doesn't mean that they're not good weapons, or this doesn't certainly mean that you can't get something decent out of this, but what it also means is that if you really want to get your hands on some better components and abilities that are all Masterwork or Legendary difficulty, then you're really going to have to take it up a notch from that easy difficulty setting. The great thing about it is if you've just hit level 30 and you're really looking for a chance to get yourself that Masterwork gear, and you're looking to build towards getting yourself up to that sort of Grandmaster 1, Grandmaster 2 difficulty setting, then playing on easy mode and getting your hands on the Masterwork gear, which is just basically the weapons, it's a good way to bolster your strength and get yourself a little bit more prepared for those higher difficulty settings later. Now there's a little bit of confusion around strongholds at the moment, and that's basically because when we first hit level 30 and we're in that first sort of grip of level 30s and we tried to do higher difficulty setting strongholds, we weren't really getting great gear, especially when you're comparing it to stuff like world chest drops and things like that. However, there have been some changes already patched in, and that is that now if you do a Grandmaster 1 or higher stronghold and you're completing that, at the end you're guaranteed to get at least one Masterwork gear drop off that end boss. These are reported from everyone around saying that javelin specific abilities seem to be the thing that you are getting at the end of your stronghold now. So if you're looking for a javelin ability in Masterwork or Legendary gear, then this is the way to get your hands on them. In the early access period, there were farming methods where players were entering free roam on the highest difficulty setting possible and running from chest to chest avoiding combat, but reaping regular and high-end rewards. Players using this method would load up maps just like the one you see in front of you and set a route around the map where they would have the highest chances at gaining Masterwork and Legendary gear just by finding the spawn rates on these chests. They would do so without having to shoot their weapon once or use a single ability, and some players who were doing this for an entire day were getting completely geared up for that one day. Obviously this method was quickly patched since it pretty much destroys the economy of the game, and it removed any incentive for actual players to go into certain content, missions, contracts and strongholds, and as a matter of fact all of the best drops coming out of these chests has been nerfed so dramatically now that when you're free roaming, most of the best drops actually come off elite enemies. Finally, there's one last method which I want to talk to you about, and this particular method is really only for those who haven't completed this particular content, or if you have a friend who hasn't completed it yet either. Now, some people are calling this particular method the loot cave method, and I guess this is in reference to a broken farm system that was in Destiny once upon a time. Now, this method requires access to a mission called Convergence, which is straight after the triple threat method in the main storyline. So basically you enter this cave area with your team, and once you reach this location, you fight titans, 3 of them to be exact. And these titans have a really nice drop rate as far as rare gear is concerned, and the only thing you can think about is, well, if only there were more of these titans, because then I could get my hands on more gear. Well, the great thing about this method is that you have an infinite number of titans by using this method. So basically all you gotta do is kill 2 out of the 3 titans in the room, and you loot all of the gear that they drop, and then basically you reset everything by wiping and dying purposely to the 3rd titan. What will then happen is the mission will respawn your team into the room, and the 2 dead titans are now back alive again, and you can rinse and repeat this process, looting as much as you like before ending the actual mission. Whilst I can confirm that nothing has been patched for this method, it's also a pretty boring way to gain loot in my opinion, and it doesn't really give you the variety that you're looking for in terms of content and enemies. It also requires a team who need to all be on board with doing things this way, otherwise they might go ahead and kill the 3rd titan, and then that'd be the end of that. So there you have it, freelancers. This has been a guide on everything gear related in Anthem, from Masterwork to Legendary, all debunked theories, farming methods, things patched, things not patched, the functionality of luck, and everything in between. I hope you enjoyed today's video, or at least found it useful in some way, because I researched a heck of a lot for this one, since information is so scarce from Anthem so far. Being such a new game, there's a fair bit of confusion surrounding loot and loot tables, so hopefully this does clear things up just a little bit. If you found today's video useful, smash that like button, please do, because it truly means a lot for myself and the channel. Click subscribe if you want to see more of my Anthem content going forward, and if you want notifications to know when I'm uploading new content to the channel, click that little bell icon. Finally, I just want to put a question out to you guys, since there seems to be so much Anthem hate at the moment all over the YouTube channels and all over any social media, I should say. What is it that you love or hate most about the game? Do you think they can improve Anthem to a point where you will play it long term? Do you think that they can fix Anthem for the outgrowing community of Anthem, or do you think Anthem is dead in the water? Let me know in the comment section below, because I think this sort of discussion is kind of necessary for anyone who really wants to play the game going forward, and I'd really like to see what people really think about the game. It makes me wonder if it's just a bandwagon hate, or if there truly is a deep-seated hate for this game, considering it's only been out for such a short period of time. Anyway, that's going to do it from me. This is Chino. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.